Guys, I am sorry. Alright, I did something wrong. Alright, I did something bad. So here's my YouTuber apology video, because I am sorry. So, I'm sorry that I got your hopes up. I'm sorry for assuming that there would be any sense of reason to the Silver Sword questline. So I had assumed that because the furthest I had heard anybody talking about this questline was 15,000, that 15,000 was the end of it. But oh boy, is it not the end of that questline. Now, I thought the people who were saying 200,000 were completely capping, and they kind of were, but, they kind of weren't at the same time. So guys, for the Silver Sword questline, there are 11, count them, 11 different stages of leveling up the sword for this quest. First one is 1,000, then 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, 40,000, and then 50,000 as the final one. The questline stopping at 15,000 would have been, okay. It was still unreasonable to do like a reforge and a half to 2 reforges, but, it was still okay. So on stream on Thursday, this is where I started from. I was 31 reforges on sword. I was in my XP bank a little. This is where we started. And this is where I was when I finished this quest line. Now, a thing to note here is that I did accidentally waste about 6,000 XP of my time, because every time you level up the sword, the bond resets if you are bonding it to your Urska weapon. So I sat on Blazeworks from level 17 to level 20, and I didn't have a bond equipped, so I was just doing that for nothing. But other than that, this is what my reforging looked like by the end of this questline. So it is 7.5 reforges, my bad, because it's, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. On the 39th one, I didn't complete it, so it was 7.5. 7.5 reforges for this one questline, for this one sword to get maximized. Every single time that there is any quest that requires somebody to do a reforge, we tell them that, hey, this isn't the best design, this isn't a favorable design, because there are plenty of reasons that people don't want to reforge. One of those being reforge badges. You can't change a reforge badge if you go further beyond the reforges that you want to. And another reason is if you just don't want to play at the lower levels of gameplay again. And another reason is if you reforge, then you kind of have to get back up to a certain point before you can do other forms of content, especially for Gauntlet. For Gauntlet, you pretty much have to be level 20. And if you're not level 20, then you literally have to take an extra hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on what stage in the game you're at, to be able to play Gauntlet again if you reforge. So for this quest line, I think I spent about 12 hours yesterday and then about, 3 hours on Thursday on stream doing this quest line. So this took me about 15 hours, but you got to keep in mind that I was spamming the hell out of my bounty tokens. Like, I was throwing away bounties, I was upgrading the good bounties. I think I spent at least 300 bounty tokens just yesterday. So you maybe take somebody who doesn't have that many bounty tokens, and this will probably take them twice, 3 times as long. But imagine people who just started playing the game, who haven't done a single sword reforge before. If it took me 15 hours to complete this questline, and it could take an endgame player who's not using bounty tokens a good, 45 hours to complete this questline, then it could really take like 70 to 80 hours for a brand new player to complete this questline. And a lot of people are like, I'm just going to skip this questline, the sword's bad anyway. But guys, I'm sorry, you probably don't want to skip this questline for a couple of reasons. Because number one, the sword is better than they were saying it was. Because this is the final version of the Silver Sword. Instead of warmth, it has galvanized. Instantly makes it way better. And you can bond it so you're not forced into that power and defense slot. So you basically just get a +3 Guardian for free. And on top of that, instead of plus 100 max health, it's actually plus 300 max health. And what did they say that this was here? They said 10% healing, it's 30% healing, and I think 50% shield gain is correct. So instead of 10% healing, it's 30% healing as well. So you have all of this on top of it being a Boreas sword. Now don't get me wrong, this probably still is not as good as Frostwolf sword, but it's a very, very close second at this point. And this even has certain advantages over any other weapon in the game, mainly because of this 300 max health. So you can still run 6 Berserker on this weapon and still have 1100 max HP, which means you're not going to be afraid of missing out on Revenant Tendril damage with this. And when you exit your Revenant state, you are actually going to heal up much faster because of this 30% increased healing. And then this weapon is going to make use of Tenacious better than any weapon that can, because you can get to 2000 max HP with Iceborne. So, that's a 40% damage source with Tough plus Iceborne. That's as strong as Overpower is. Granted, the Tough is kind of wasting a couple of your cell slots there, but that's still pretty significant. So yeah, the sword is actually a lot better than they were leading us to believe, and even stated in the patch notes. But the other reason you might want to do this questline is for the rewards it has. Because the Frostfall crown is rewarded from this questline now, and there is a new title, the Silver Sword, for you, if you complete this questline. And the main question we have to ask ourselves here is, what the hell were they thinking? I want one single developer to do this questline in full on the live server. Like, perhaps Tenouty. Tenouty is probably the most likely to do that sort of thing. But I challenge the devs to do this questline and not get incredibly sick of playing Sword, and honestly, I even challenge them to finish this questline. I mean, sure, it is the holidays, a lot of people have a lot of time off, but asking people to do a minimum of 15 hours and upwards of 80 hours doing this questline during that holiday break, you might as well be back at work. And there are 4 or 5 major holidays over this break, depending on who you ask. So the real question is, outside of the extremely hardcore grinders, who has the time for this quest? This is basically New World levels of disrespecting your time. When New World came out, people were flaming it for how grindy it was, and by the end game, it got even grindier than just, skill leveling and stuff. So you know what happened? Because the game was just one entire large grind fest that was completely unreasonable, people just stopped playing the game. They stopped paying attention to it, because within the first month, it literally dropped by 90%. Now, people were going back to it over time because the devs realized that, oh yeah, this is really bad, let's make it a little bit better. And then the expansion came out and a bunch of people were interested in it again. But if you were to look now, New World is back to the lower end of the viewership because it's still just an insanely grindy game, and there's no point in grinding something that long if you're just not enjoying it. But you guys want to know why I'm just genuinely pissed off at this whole thing? It's because this was actually a really good concept. A limited time weapon that you have to do a quest to, make it reach its full potential. This was such a good concept, and they completely fucked it up. Like, even the most hardcore of Reforged grinders and sword mains, they probably hate this questline. I don't think there is a single person who is going to actively enjoy this questline. And what's worse is that the devs are going on vacation, so it's not like they're going to hotfix change it so that there's one less zero added to all these quests. And even that would be a kind of a long grind. But I sincerely hope that they just accidentally added an extra 0 to all of these experience numbers, because my fucking god, this was just terrible. But you have this cool concept for a limited time quest that has this great weapon, and then you just completely botch the execution of this thing. And it's not going to make people as excited for like the next version of this that comes out. Or it might turn out that they just botched this so bad that there won't be another version of this. But, at least the sword's better than they said it was. But, that's also worse because it means you actually want to do this quest line. And my god, just, I think for myself, I literally had to do this in mostly one sitting. Otherwise, I would start thinking about how much I don't want to do the quest line, and then I would probably talk myself out of it. But yeah, the Silver Sword quest line, loved the idea of it. It was just piss poorly executed. And I'm sorry for assuming that this would be any sort of reasonable at 1.5 to 2 reforges. Nah, you got to do 7.5 for this one. At least when it came to like grinding out a bunch of bounty tokens with these Frostfall gifts, like that is an optional choice for you. It's like a challenge. How many of the bounty tokens can I stockpile? But these 7.5 reforges are a requirement if you want to be a completionist and you want to have all of the weapons that are in the game. It would have been better if the sword was worse than it is, or if it was actually as advertised, because then I could just recommend you skip this thing. But short of a dev rushing into the office and subtracting a 0 from all of the experience gain needed on these quest lines, this is probably going to go down as one of the more disappointing executions of the concept. Except for like the Chainblades rubric, right? Great decision that was, guys. But yeah, that's it for this one. Whoever thought 7.5 reforges was a good number for this quest line, fucking shame on you. But yeah, that's it. I've been Trevor. I go by TheMrTrails. Catch you guys next time, hopefully on a better topic than this.